Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the NBA Front Office Show. Happy Monday. We've got another week of NBA basketball to look forward to and lots of stuff going on, of course, with the trade deadline just around the corner. I'm Trevor Lane. You can find me over on X at Trevor_Lane, joined by Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. Before we dive into everything, quick reminder, if you're not doing so yet, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications as well. We're going to be going all over all the trade deadline news and rumors. So again, make sure you stay in the know. Subscribe to the channel. Keith, I had a fairly relaxing weekend for the most part. I mean, busy as usual, but mostly relaxing weekend. I'm ready to go. I'm excited for a new week of NBA basketball to dive into.
Yeah, me too. It was this time of year, you never know. You're going to be at the grocery store, and then you get the tweet, and it's like, oh, trade. And then it's me and you are texting, all right, when do we want to go? Do we need to go live? Where are we at? You got to come back and react and all that stuff. And we didn't get one of those this weekend. So that's, a good thing, I guess, from that standpoint. It would have been fun if we had, don't get me wrong, but we get another weekend of that. And then, man, I can't believe we're like a week and a half out from the trade deadline. It felt like it took a long time to get here. And now it's almost right around the corner.
Oh, my wife already knows in terms of making plans pre-trade deadline and post-trade deadline. And pre-trade deadline basically means you can't make nothing extensive. We're not going to go sit in a movie theater for a couple hours or anything like that. Post-trade deadline, okay, then things will open up again and we can start doing stuff.
Couple movies I really want to go see, and they're probably going to be things like I see by myself because I'm the only one that has an interest. And I was like, hopefully it'll still be in the theaters in a couple weeks when it's the All-Star break, and I can go check it out then, because that's that one's just killer, right? Almost anything else you could kind of step away from, or you'd be done within a reasonable 30 minutes or so and get back to where I need to be. Movie, it's like I'm locking in for 2 hours, and then there's no way to really walk away. And that's almost tempting fate too much.
Yeah, exactly. You're tempting the basketball gods to drop that Woj bomb right then. All right, let's get into some of the news around the NBA right now. And I guess let's start here. The Knicks, they have interest in acquiring Wizards center Daniel Gafford. Meanwhile, the Wizards like Quentin Grimes. So let's make a deal. Is that the way this is going to go down? It's just, hey, we like this guy, we like that guy, and let's put something together.
If only it were that simple, right? It does lend itself to maybe there could be something that involves either guy headed the other way. So yeah, I mean, I get it with the Knicks. I have to wonder, is the Daniel Gafford stuff, like, we were interested when Mitchell Robinson was out and Isaiah Hartenstein had missed a few games, and we weren't really sure what does that look like. We're going to get into it a little later, but they have another bigger injury to worry about right now. And then Quentin Grimes, totally get teams have been calling on him because he's out of the rotation in New York to some extent. He still plays, but he's not playing 30 minutes a night anymore. Now he's playing more like 15 minutes a night after they did their movement to acquire OG Anunoby, and guys get kind of shuffled around a little bit, and he lost his starting spot to Dante DiVincenzo. So it's been a position where I think teams are looking and saying, hey, pretty good young player, get him at the end of his rookie scale contract, see how he works out with us. Can he scale into an even bigger role and go from there? Washington's a team that's very much in asset collection mode right now.
Yeah, and so I think that the Wizards are one of the teams that's probably going to make moves here at the deadline. They're certainly a team to keep an eye on. Whether or not they get something done with the Knicks, we'll see. Speaking of the Knicks, let's stick with them. Unfortunately, Julius Randle now out several weeks dealing with a shoulder injury. I haven't seen exactly what the injury, like they're still figuring out what the injury is, but they know he's going to be out at least several weeks. Unfortunate, certainly. I don't think it's not like this is going to change their trade deadline plans or anything like that, but this is a tough blow for a Knicks team that's been playing some pretty darn good basketball.
Yeah, and that's the one spot where they really don't have another guy to just step right in and play for Randle. Presumably, I'm guessing OG Anunoby will now slide up to the 4, which he's more than capable of doing. And then it sounds like Josh Hart's going to be first in line. We just talked about Quentin Grimes. His role probably will increase over the next few weeks here. Several weeks, we don't know. Jeff Stotts, if you're not following him, we pump him almost anytime there's a major injury. He's in street clothes over on X. he is a great follow because he comes with news on, all right, this is what the history is when guys have had injuries like this. And Julius Randle dislocated his right shoulder. Maybe, I don't know if that's a less a big deal because he's a left-handed player, he's a left-handed shooter, so maybe that's not as impactful necessarily. But he tweeted it's usually about a month that players miss after an injury like this. And we remember Paul George had this, then he came back, then it happened again. And that's the big thing with these dislocations. It tends to be something where once the area is weakened, it can happen again. Now, the good news is all reports are no major damage, no tears or anything like that. So hopefully it's just about get it re-strengthened, get him back. But I do kind of wonder if the Knicks now say, if we could get like maybe a 4-5 guy who could play both positions and maybe back up a little bit there. Maybe that's the way they go forward. I'm curious to see if it does change things, maybe at least a little, just for, hey, we want to be a really good team and push forward the remainder of this season.
Well, they've won their last 6 in a row. Good to hear. I hadn't seen that there were no tears or anything in there. That's the word I was waiting for. So good to hear that there weren't any tears or anything going on in there. But yeah, that's going to be the challenge perhaps for the Knicks, is to go and see if is there somebody that they can add that is kind of a plug and play guy. I mean, like, we know they love Taj Gibson. Do they just, I know he's not the ideal answer, but just to have another big body, do you just bring him back in? And I know he's more 5 certainly than 4, but is that, I mean, maybe that's the way that they go here ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, they do have an open roster spot right now. They opened up a roster spot when they made the Anunoby trade, which was almost a month ago now, I'm guessing, or really close to that. So maybe they could. Maybe you do just call Taj Gibson and say, hey, hope you for your, well, he was waived in the process of that trade, I believe, there. But maybe you do just say, hey, you want to come back because we do have a spot for you, and let's go. So it's maybe that is the simple solution. Or there could be another player they like on a 10-day contract or something like that to at least get them through till maybe a couple 10 days till you get to the All-Star break, something in that range there. The Knicks, just in case anybody was wondering too, playing really well. They've won 6 straight. They're up to 4th in the East. They're only a game behind Philadelphia for 3rd. So they're really playing some really good basketball right now.
Yeah, they've been great. We'll see if they can keep this run going. But yeah, we'll see how they manage this Julius Randle injury. Let's jump over to arguably the biggest name on the trade market right now, and that's Dejounte Murray. We did get some updates on him. Obviously, Jake Fisher told us a bit about him last Friday when we did our live show. That was a lot of fun. We had him on to talk trade rumors during our Front Office Friday live show. But Mark Stein had this over the weekend. I confirmed this. This went along with everything that I had been hearing. And that's that talks between the Lakers and the Hawks on a Dejounte Murray trade have been very minimal at this point. What I had heard is that they went nowhere. And that things have been basically been very, very quiet on the trade front there. Essentially, I think what it's coming down to is the Hawks want Austin Reeves. The Lakers don't want to give up Austin Reeves. And it's kind of a staring contest. I also know the Lakers are looking to, from what I've heard, are looking to not just get stuck on Dejounte Murray. They don't want to sit there and just be the leverage for the Hawks to try to, here, this is the offer we've got. Everybody else come and try and one-up this. They're going to look elsewhere and see what else they can find out there on the market with the pieces that could be in this deal. So Jake brought up the possibility that this could be John Collins all over again, that this could be, I mean, Keith, we literally talked for years about the Hawks moving John Collins and feeling like it was just about to happen, and then they wouldn't pull the trigger at the end. Possibly that's the way they're going, and I don't blame the Hawks either. I'd probably be doing the same thing, honestly, if I were the Hawks, because they've got him under team control for the next 4 years. Why not? Why not? If you don't have the exact offer that you want right now, wait and see what comes up over the summer. So I don't fault the Hawks at all for their strategy currently on the Murray trade market.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a spot with Murray where there's no reason to rush into a bad trade. The Hawks have made it seemingly very clear they do not want DAngelo Russell. And that just makes sense. He's not a fit with Trae Young. He's a worse fit with Trae Young than Murray would be. So there's no reason to rush into, well, that's all we can get is DAngelo Russell. So I guess we have to, right? You have full control here. This is not that anything ever got acrimonious with Pascal Siakam, but with him, the Raptors were under some pressure because he's a free agent this summer. So you do have a little bit of pressure of, all right, otherwise we may lose him for nothing. So the Hawks really have full control here. Murray's also not the stature of player where it is, well, I'll make a trade demand and make this uncomfortable. Like that's just not going to be how this goes. So yeah, it's going to take a team that can get Atlanta what they want, that really values Dejounte Murray. And I'm sure for the Lakers, it's probably, hey, this offer is here. If we can find that third team, or you soften and say, all right, you know what, we'll take Russell and we'll figure it out later. I think what you could see happen in this situation is, you know where we stand. Let's talk again on Thursday of the trade deadline. We'll touch base in the morning. If you still have Murray, we'll see where it's at. Maybe you've come down a little bit on your ask. Maybe we're now able to offer something we weren't before. And then they kind of go in that direction. That happens a lot of times. We hear pretty regularly talks are done between these teams, and then they come back around and, oh, hey, they did get it done. So I think stories yet to be written on this one, but
yes.
I think Jake could be spot on. I mean, we might be talking about Murray for the next 6 months too, all the way into the start of the offseason and maybe even beyond.
Yeah, this is this time of year, and this is not a Lakers Hawks specific thing. This is an NBA wide thing. We have to remember, it takes one phone call to change the course of any of these negotiations, anything that we're hearing. Sometimes you also hear things that by the time it gets out, it's a couple days old and the situation has changed quite a bit. Again, when things can pivot so quickly right now, you just never know. So keep that in mind as we get closer to the deadline. And then again, as I believe we talked about our last show, what can happen is the groundwork for a deal, while it doesn't get done at the trade deadline, it gets laid now, and then over summertime, that's when the trade actually comes together and gets completed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that could be one where, hey, it's just easier. Everything's easier to make trades in the summertime. You have expanded rosters, so you can take in extra guys if you need to. There will be teams with cap space in the summertime. Russell flips to being an expiring contract, assuming he picks up his option. Ahead of that, there's just a lot of reasons why that could be much easier to make happen then if they don't make something now. And I think the Lakers are being very cautious with to your point of, one, we don't want to be the leverage team in this specific example, but we've also heard, and when you hear it multiple times through multiple different parties related to multiple different players and teams, I think the Austin Reeves stuff is very real. I think they are. We don't want to trade him unless it's like the monster star package that we're returning, and that guy's not available right now. It's just, that's not Murray, that's not Zach LaVine, that isn't really anybody who's been put on the market. Now, maybe something changes in the next week and a half here, or maybe that's something that changes come July. We know come July, somebody will be available that we have we're not even mentioning them now, even as a possibility, because it's so far out there. And then maybe that's when the Lakers change their stance on Austin Reeves. But as it stands right now, let's not go. I don't know how much I buy the whole D'Angelo Russell's playing really good, so maybe we don't want to trade him. I think that's a little bit more of that's from the Lakers side of, hey, we're now we're going to back away on this side of it. I mean, I don't. D'Angelo Russell is the same exact player who was 3 weeks ago. Like he's playing good. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, sure.
But it's not like all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, maybe this guy will be an all-star here.
No.
But they know who he is and what his value is. That's just posturing. But to your point, I'm picking on them because it's a topic right now. But every team does this. Every team is, I don't know. I can't really trade him. It's to use the line from Moneyball. I like Eckerton. And he's like, you don't even know who Eckerton is.
You don't even know who he is. Yeah.
Right. Like that's like that. It's just everybody likes everybody until it's, it's time. That's why every time a press conference comes, it was really hard to trade a guy. And it's like, oh, really? Like when the Knicks eventually trade Evan Fournier, someone will say like, Evan's a good guy. It was tough to give him up. And it's like, no, it wasn't. He hasn't played meaningful minutes in a year and a half for you. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, D'Angelo Russell was I mean, his ice in his veins, but he was ice cold there for a good chunk of December and the beginning of January. Now he's on a heater, and that's part of the D'Angelo Russell experience, right? He can be streaky, he can be hot and cold. I'm here for. I love when he's playing well. He's a lot of fun to watch when he's got that shot going, got the swagger going. But yeah, I don't think this necessarily changes how he's perceived, or like suddenly, oh, something clicked. And now if he plays the, which he's not going to, right? Spoiler alert, he's not going to do this, but because the shooting is frankly unsustainable. But if he played this way all the way through the playoffs or something, okay, maybe that starts to change the conversation. But
yeah,
a 3-week burst,
yeah,
that is not going to change the way teams around the NBA see him.
Just as an aside, did you see ESPN did this was not a reported piece, it was trades they'd like to see article. And in one of the trades they'd like to see sent D'Angelo Russell in a 3-team trade back to the Nets. And it just made me laugh because I'm like, and then maybe the Nets could trade him to the Timberwolves, and then the Timberwolves could trade him to the Lakers. It'd just be funny if every few years D'Angelo Russell just does the full circuit of those 3 teams, buys a house in each place, and is just like, hey, let's go. Let's keep moving me around.
He's like the NBA version of a snowbird, you know,
yeah,
that
right?
he just every season he just travels and he goes to a different climate. And yeah,
that would
there
be
you go.
funny if he spent like all winter in Minnesota or Brooklyn, and then they trade him or spent all like fall there, and then they trade him in the winter off to the Lakers or something, or the Lakers keep him in the early part, and then they trade him somewhere when it warms up north for the spring run. Yeah, that'd be pretty funny.
Yeah, that definitely would. Definitely would. All right. Let's jump over here. The Rockets reportedly interested in Robert Williams. So this is obviously, there's the Ime Udoka connection here. Now, Williams is out for the season, but do you see this making sense? I mean, I'm a big fan of Alperen Sengun, and I'm on the side of you give him all the minutes that you can. Can Williams and Sengun play together? Do you like that pairing? I mean, obviously next year and then into the future.
I don't like them playing together, but I like Robert Williams in a 15 to 20 minute a night bench role behind Sengun, or playing if he ever needs to miss time. I am now more convinced than I've ever been. Puppy checking in. I'm more convinced than I've ever been that Williams now, if he's a starter, he's going to be one of those starters where plays the first few minutes of the half, comes in for the last few minutes of the half, and that's all he can handle. I just don't know that he can handle being a 30-minute a night starting center. I don't think his body's made for it. I think he will end up missing a considerable amount of time if that's what happens. So I think what you do here, if you're the Rockets, is you get him. He's a really nice backup for Sengun, and you almost have kind of the change of pace guy too, because teams often like that, especially at the poles at the center and the point guard spot. If one center is more ground bound, more methodical, which Sengun is, you want somebody else to come in that's really energetic and a high flyer.
The fire and ice.
Yeah, that's it, right? So you just kind of bring him in and let him be chaotic for 15, 20 minutes a night off the bench, and just kind of go there. And then you don't have to overextend Sengun either. And there are probably lineup constructions where you could play the two of them together for a few minutes per game. You'd have to have a lot of shooting at the other 3 positions. So, but I think if you're Houston, the idea is, why not? We could probably get him as cheap as you could ever get him right now. And not that they're not going anywhere, but I think they're being very realistic about, we're not making the Zach LaVine trade to try to chase the play-in tournament. Like, we're going to continue on the path we set upon, which is add good veterans around the guys we have and just kind of go from there. So I think this would be a great pickup for them.
All right, let's jump over to let's go here to take a short break from trade talks. Adam Silver got a contract extension that'll keep him with the NBA all the way through the end of the decade. I thought there was, correct me if I'm wrong here, it's just off the top of my head, and at this point there's a million different things bouncing around up in here, but wasn't it like a year ago that we were hearing about different organizations maybe trying to poach Adam Silver? was it Disney? Was it Netflix?
Yeah, there was talks of that he could be the one to go in and take over for Bob Iger. There were talks of like a couple other big, like, I don't want to call them tech companies, but they're companies that are like online focused, like sales, like Amazon, Netflix. There were talks like that. There was a feeling he could be a guy who could run like a TV network or something like that. But I think it's the NBA is very happy with him. And I know people have a lot of things to say about Adam Silver, most of which is, I think, more just people trying to get jokes off or place blame where they don't know where else to place it, because
Sure.
he doesn't make the rules. He doesn't make the schedule. Like, all that stuff is, a little overblown. He works for the owners. The owners are obviously very happy. Teams are worth more than they've ever been worth. They're going to sign. It's probably not going to be as big of a monster TV deal as they thought it might have been. Well, we'll see. We don't know that for sure, but it's going to be bigger than it's ever been. They're going to expand sometime within the next couple of years. That came out as a part of this as well. It's like they want to get him extended because they want him to handle the TV deal and expansion without anything hanging over him. There was also a report of the next TV deal maybe shorter than the current one, which ran for 9 years. They may only go like 5 years, with the idea around, let's see what it looks like with probably moving to at least one streaming partner moving forward. So I think this makes a lot of sense, but bring them back and have them in the fold. And really, none of these commissioners, none of them are liked, right? They're all pretty routinely criticized by fans in all sports, but they've all been in place for a while now. And none of them seem like they're going anywhere. In the NBA's case, not only do the owners like him, but the players really like Adam Silver too. And that makes a massive difference as well.
Yeah, and look, you mentioned that you get a lot of criticism if you are at the head of one of these organizations, whether it's MLB, whether it's NFL, whether it's NBA, it doesn't really matter. That comes with the territory. I mean, same thing as being president, right? You're going to get criticism no matter what you do. But Adam Silver in general, I look at what he's done. I look at what he's done for the NBA, and certainly there's some good and there's some bad, but I think the big things that we think about in this league, especially when we think about the in-season tournament, we think about the play-in, these have all worked. And these are things that he got criticized for, that he caught a lot of pushback on, and he went ahead with it and said, no, I think this is the right thing for us to do. And he's largely been proven right. So overall, while there are always going to be things to criticize people for, and I think it was you I saw that was pushing back on people who were wanting the game to go back to the way it was played in the 90s. People will get nostalgic over stuff like that and say, oh, Adam Silver's eliminated defense. There's too much 3-point shooting, all this. No matter what happens, there's going to be things to complain about and things to be critical of. But in general, big picture, I think he's done a pretty darn good job, even in the face of like serious concerns about moves that he's making. He's been proven right more often than not.
And he led the league, meaning the league operations and the team side, through the bubble season.
Yes.
Like, that can't be forgotten. Like, that was a monster success at a time when we all needed something sports wise, right? We were all kind of dying without sports, and it was the NBA put it together.
That's probably not the word to use there.
Yeah, not a good point. Yeah, that's a good call. Poor phrasing on my part. We're all pining for sports.
There you go.
We needed some kind of new entertainment that wasn't Tiger King. It was like, please.
I have not thought about that in a long time.
I think about it more than I should admit. But anyway, I digress. And that's a huge thing that's going to be part of his resume forever now too. And that's just a lot of good stuff. That came through that. So I think it's it's this to me it makes sense. It's a no-brainer to get this done, and have him focused and leading through the next few big efforts here, which is the TV contracts and then the expansion that we all know is going to come. Last thing I want to say, we didn't put it in the show topics.
Yeah,
the NHL is talking already about expanding again. Maybe up to 34 teams. The Utah Jazz owner, Ryan Miller, and his wife, and like their company, I forget what it's called, but whatever it is, I think it's Ryan Smith, actually. That's bad. I should know that.
Yeah.
Ryan Smith.
You
Miller
forgot your
was
own name.
Former owners of the Jazz, the Miller family. But the Ryan Smith and his wife and their company wrote the NHL basically a very public letter of hey, we want an expansion team, and we're willing to do everything it takes, practice facilities, arena, whatever it needs to be to have a hockey team. And then right on the heels of that, there were 7 or 8 other places that were yeah, we want a hockey team too. And that just kind of sparked some of the rediscussion of, does the NBA just go to 32? Do they say, let's try to beat sports into a couple of these other places? Maybe they'll go to 34 too. And it may not be 34 with 4 new teams all at once, but it
Yeah.
might be 2 teams and another couple of years, 2 teams. But expansion is coming, and now it's just going to be, what form does it take?
Well, especially because they're probably going to be last into Vegas. I don't know what the Athletics, what their move plan looks like or how quickly that's happening, but it feels like
That one's
they're,
going to
and
be
again,
close. Yeah.
it feels like they're probably a step ahead of the NBA, but the NBA already has infrastructure there through summer league, so that probably matters too. But they may
There's
be
like
last.
8 arenas that they could play in the interim time if they
Yes,
needed to, because they just build stuff in Las Vegas and like, we'll figure out what we're
somebody
gonna
will
use it
come
for
occupy
later.
this. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, and then you've got obviously Seattle is another place that's going to get a team, and they, they're you've got the Kraken are there, you've got the Mariners, you've got of course the Seahawks. So well, I mean, you were there and then you left, and now
Yeah,
you're
I think
coming back.
Seattle at least has the history, right? Like
You've got some history there, sure, but where else could they look to be where maybe they're not like the last one coming in, and then they can develop more of a groundswell? Because we know there's a lot of cities where the NBA is not the number one sport, where it's football, some places it's baseball. Mostly you're going to see football, but some places can be baseball. I do wonder if there's some markets they could target where they could be the big attraction in town. And you think about like Sacramento. Okay, they've got, you've got the 49ers up there and everything and all that, but still, like, the Kings are kind of Sacramento, right? So that's where, and I guess San Jose, you've got the Sharks up there too. But I do wonder if the NBA can find more situations like that where they can be the first one in and the one to kind of really grab a hold of that area's fans before some of the other sports get there.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think they've been very clear. I mean, Adam Silver has now said it on the record a couple different times of growing the game internationally is a thing for them. They have the G League team in Mexico City. That's obviously been, let's try to make this a test case for, could we support an NBA team here? There's cities in Canada. Vancouver would like another run. Montreal's been mentioned now more prominently in recent years as a city that might want to get involved in the NBA. The sport's obviously growing massively in Canada. I don't think we're like anytime soon going to see a team in Europe that's part of the NBA or anything like that. The travel logistics are just still too much. I think in my lifetime we'll see things like that. I think for sure we'll see the leagues expand internationally. But I think we're in a spot where there's a lot of room for growth, both in the United States and in North America for the NBA. And I think they're, at the very least, they're going to explore it and maybe open some doors for, hey, this round of expansion is Seattle and Las Vegas.
Yeah.
But we're going to come back around sooner rather than later. It's not going to be another 20 plus years before we have new teams introduced. We'll come back around again, and then we'll kind of get into it at that point.
All right, let's jump back into some trade talks here. Jarrett Allen reportedly not available in trade talks right now with the Cavs. I mean, a lot of their defense is really set up around Jarrett Allen and funneling guys into him. So it's not really a surprise. I mean, I still remember years ago when that trade got made, and it felt like the Cavs kind of snuck into the deal and stole Jarrett Allen that was the James Harden trade, and that was really impressive. And I don't blame them. I'd be hanging on to Jarrett Allen too if I were the Cavs. I think he's really critical to what they do, especially on the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because at the time we're all like, why are the Cavs even in this trade?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, this doesn't even make sense. And they came away with, the guy who has been one of the best players in maybe the only guy left from that deal still in the city he's in, because Karis LeVert is now in Cleveland, but he went to Indiana initially in that trade. And Victor Oladipo has been, I guess he's back in Houston now, but he'd been moved around a couple places too. So, but yeah, Jarrett Allen is he blossomed into an all-star in Cleveland. He's playing great. He's keying one of the best defenses in the league. He's been absolutely awesome. They're using a lot of the Quinn Snyder Utah principles under Rudy Gobert. It's, lock up tight on the perimeter, and if you get beat, just make sure you get beat to the middle where Jarrett Allen can clean it up. And that's huge. He's been really, really good. And he's really held that down without Evan Mobley for the last several weeks. And now we know Evan Mobley's coming back tonight. We're recording this Monday afternoon. He'll be back Monday to play. So yeah, I'm really not surprised. And $20 million a year, great contract for a team that is they've gotten more expensive and is only going to continue to get more expensive as they continue to grow into being a better team. So I'm all for keeping Jared Allen. Another team in the East playing really good basketball. They've won 9 out of their last 10 games, and they're right there with the Knicks. They're a half game behind the Knicks and only a game and a half behind Philadelphia.
Do you think that either the Cavs or the Knicks can I'm putting Philadelphia right now in the upper tier in the East right now, Philly, Milwaukee, and Boston. Can either the Cavs or the Knicks realistically get into that conversation?
I want to see if the Knicks make a big move with Fournier's contract and do something, but beyond just, this guy's a nice player that comes in. Do they have one more move in him, or is that going to be something we have to wait till the summertime to get? Cleveland, I just think Cleveland's less likely to make a move like that. I think Cleveland is healthy. I think they may be the 4th best team in the East. I just don't know that I'd put them on the Boston, Milwaukee, Philly level. And then, of course, Philly could make another move as well, which really solidifies themselves in that tier with Boston, Milwaukee too. So I don't know that I see it over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's we'll see what happens at the trade deadline. I do think there are a couple of teams that could probably use, that other move to really boost themselves up, but they're both playing really good basketball. By the way, a little very minor news, but bigger news in Lakers spheres. But D'Angelo Russell, who we just talked about, got fined $15,000 for kicking a ball into the stands
right at the end of the game, right?
At the end of the game against the Warriors. I honestly, obviously we know $15,000 isn't a lot to a lot of these guys, but I kind of don't blame him. If you saw that no yes 3 that he shot after turning the ball over multiple times and missing a layup, and then he hit it, I'd be pretty fired up if I was D'Angelo Russell too.
Well, it's funny too. It wasn't even a good kick either. Like he anybody who's watches soccer, has played soccer, he kind of hit it off the side of his shin. And it was when
shanked it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was when it was right after Steph took that what was it, almost 3/4 court attempt that fell short. The ball bounced, Russell he took a swing at it and sent it off into the stands. But yeah, you can't be kicking the ball or throwing it intentionally into the stands. But I'm sure that always reminds me of Mighty Ducks. 2 minutes, well worth it.
Well worth it. Oh, those were good movies. Those were good movies. All right. Speaking of the Cavs, we got some players coming back, including Evan Mobley returning for the Cavs. Tyrese Halliburton, please stay back this time. Hopefully he stays healthy and comes back, because he is so much fun. And then Ben Simmons. Come on, Ben. This time.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Halliburton one, that one's the biggest news, I think, as far as the named players, all-star starter, obviously huge that he's going to be back in there for the Pacers. Pacers have played well. I just after watching their game yesterday, I tweeted out they have real depth. Like their guys are good. They're not just plugging in these dudes who really don't really have a place into the rotation. Their guys are good. Turner and Halliburton missed that game yesterday, and they just rolled forward with Nembhard. TJ McConnell also wasn't there, missed the game. But all right, Nembhard, you got it. You're going to run the show, and then up front we're going to run with Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith, and we're good. And off we go. And they just didn't miss a beat. So great for having him back. Mobley, we already kind of talked about. He'll help lift the Cavs. Hopefully Darius Garland, maybe soonish. I got a feeling we're going to get this stuff with Darius Garland of it took him a little extra time because he broke his jaw and had his jaw wired shut. So I gotta imagine he couldn't keep weight on. That's probably going to be a problem for Darius Garland. And talk about Darius Garland, a guy who could, maybe afford the occasional cheeseburger and milkshake.
For sure.
He's, pretty slight to begin with. And then Simmons, let's hope, right? Let's just hope this is it. And he's back now and can actually play and contribute. And that's a Nets team that is, boy, they're struggling. They're a half game out of the last play-in spot, but they've really slipped in recent weeks down. They're 9 games under 500 now. So not that Simmons is going to save the season by any means, but maybe he gets back and can help them out.
Do you think the Nets make moves here before February 8th?
They're going to do stuff. They seem like the kind of team that they may make moves where it is, let's rebalance the roster out a little bit. Let's get some guys who are we're not just selling off for kids and draft picks. It is they bring back a veteran or two that makes more sense around Bridges, around Cam Johnson. If Simmons is in the fold, here's what we look like before guys like Dinwiddie and O'Neal's contracts expire. There's a lot of interest in Nick Claxton. I've talked to a few teams today that are like, we might try to make a run at him because just his contract number is so low. It's like 8.8 million. So why not try to go get him if you can, if you think, that he can be a real help, and then get him re-signed this summer too. Well, why not make a run at a guy like him? But so they're going to be active, I think, for sure. I don't know that we're going to get the, oh my gosh, they traded Mikal Bridges or anything like that, but I do think we'll see the Nets make moves.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm optimistic that we're going to see a decent amount of moves. I don't know how many whoa type moves there's going to be out there this year at the trade deadline. I think we're going to see moves, but I don't think there's going to be the, wow, that guy got traded. I don't think that's going to happen at this year's trade deadline.
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to be forced into doing live shows unplanned where it's like,
at 2:30 in the morning.
That happened. Yeah. Like, and even the Kevin Durant one, we kind of thought it might have been coming because he had already asked for a trade and all that stuff, but it was still like, oh my God, it did happen. Like, wow, like this got done. Like, yeah, I don't know that we're going to get something like that. I don't even know that we're going to get anything that approaches the level of like the Lakers Westbrook trade last year, which ended up being a pretty monster trade for several teams involved. Even if for like the Wolves, it took almost a year later for it to really come to full fruition for them. But yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of rebalancing moves, some future focused moves, things like that. But yeah, I don't know that we're going to get, oh my God, drop everything and, let's go right to the mics. Like, I don't know. It just feels like that guy's not available right now.
Yeah. Well, that's not ideal for the NBA in general, for the league. So thank goodness the Lakers and Warriors were throwing haymakers at each other the other night. That will certainly help it. That'll make Adam Silver smile. But I don't know about the trade deadline this year. Again, I think there's moves to be made just in terms of like names that the casual fan, which I hate that has become a derogatory term, but the casual fan would know and would go, whoa, oh, this guy, something's happening in the NBA. I don't know if there's going to be that thing that's even going to, pull any attention away from the Super Bowl or anything like that,
Yeah, like you and I will get fired up if like some team snags Corey Kispert from the Wizards. And it's like, oh my gosh, they got a really good shooter on a rookie scale deal, and we'll probably spend 15 minutes talking about it. But yeah, that's not going to be, nobody's going to be rushing to, send out tweets, and I got to read every reaction piece of how this deal happened. Now, part of that is because some of those already happened, right? James Harden got traded already. Pascal Siakam already got traded this season. OG Anunoby got traded. Like, those were big monster trades that already happened. So I think it's that has to be factored in. But who knows? Maybe a Zach LaVine trade does come. I think that's something a lot of people would get fired up about because big name, recognizable name. It would be a big trade just from the contract, and that necessitates it would be. And then the league has a way of surprising us too. There might be something going on that nobody's talked about and has been kept really quiet, and then all of a sudden it gets dropped here in the next week and a half. That happens pretty regularly too. So I kind of, anytime we're at this time of year, I'm like, yep, that there it is. Even if it's a surprising move, it's not surprising that something happened because the NBA always seems to have something up its sleeve.
Let me ask you this, Keith, because I'm curious. We talked to Jake, and there were a lot of things that Jake said where you kept saying like, oh yeah, you had heard that as well. I hear things, but typically in the Lakers sphere, just because that's kind of my world that's my bubble that I'm in. So like I knew a few days ago that things had gone quiet on the Dejounte Murray trade. There are little things like that I'll pick up every now and then. I'm not nearly as plugged in with stuff as you are. Is there anything, and I know this isn't really what you do, but are there any things that you've heard, because you get a lot of people talking to you about cap stuff, that you find particularly interesting, or anything that you would want to share that you've heard in terms of what teams are looking to do heading into the deadline?
Yeah, there's like the Golden State Warriors situation has become more interesting especially over the last like week. I think there was almost the pause that they had to take after losing an assistant coach. Unfortunately, his passing. There was I think almost an introspective look at the team of where are we going. I wrote about this a little bit today for Spot Track. I wrote about buyers and sellers, and there's a belief that the Warriors are sellers now, more in the sense of not Draymond Green, not Klay Thompson, definitely not Steph Curry, but yeah, if we can move Andrew Wiggins in a move that just rebalances our books a little bit, let's go. Kuminga's going to be a lot harder to get, but a lot of the rest of the guys very open to at least a conversation on. And Pajemski's also, I would say, in the realm of we really would rather not, right? We're not going to move off him. But that's a little bit of a different approach, because it's been for a decade plus now of let's go get guys, right? We're going to go add to this team. We're going to add to this team. There's a sense of they're really probably going to look to rebalance their books a little bit and try to get into, I don't want to call it this way, but in a way more normal place with how much the roster costs coming forward. Now, can they find a Wiggins trade that allows that to happen? I don't know. We'll see. And there's a lot of complications. Andrew Wiggins hasn't played very well for a long time. There was a sense of there's a couple of teams that are feeling like if we don't do something now, these moves may not be available to us later because they're going to get more expensive over the next couple of years. That's kind of where there could be something like that happens with Orlando. Orlando as an organization is pretty tight-lipped, but everybody they talk to necessarily isn't. So sometimes you glean from another team what another team's conversation with them is. And then when you hear conversations like that from 3 or 4 other places, it starts to crystallize, okay, this is kind of what this team's looking to do. So I think there's all of that. And then you've got all the teams that aren't very good that are, what are we going to do? Like there's very much a belief Charlotte, if it's not LaMelo Ball, Gordon Hayward, or Mark Williams, they'll move anybody. Like they've had conversations on every other guy on the roster. Personally, I'm rooting for Ish Smith to get to another new team that he's never played for, just because the fun of it. But then like Detroit, they kind of started to make it a little bit more clear of, yeah, we're probably not going to trade Bogdanovich again. We're probably going to hang on unless the team really wants to give us. I don't think they're posturing in. Now they may be wrong. That's a different thing from posturing. But I don't think they're posturing on we need a first-round pick and a good player for Bogdanovich. That's what they want. Now, we could disagree, and I may say, hey, any first-round picks probably should be enough for you with where you're at, but that's where they're at. So I think those are the kind of things that are, for me, when I hear it from 2-3 different sources, even if I'm not hearing direct from that team, like I have no problem saying, no one from the Pistons has told me that directly.
Right.
But I've heard that from like 3 other places. When you hear it, it's all right. Well, 3 places don't have reasons to make that up for the Pistons. Again, maybe the Pistons are saying that today. It's January 29th, and we still have several days till the trade deadline, 10 days to go. Maybe that changes, but those are the things that I'm kind of hearing right now.
That's interesting. So the Warriors could be sellers. We've talked all about the Pistons. If they don't wind up selling on Bogdanovich, I mean, I think that's a missed opportunity. But hey, to each their own, right? Every team gets to decide exactly how they want to play things. But interesting stuff there. Yeah, I certainly appreciate you sharing that, because
I'll add one other thing if I can, just because I want to make sure the buyout market feels a little weird this year too, because of the new second apron rules. There are players who would have 100% been agitating for buyouts in previous years that there's maybe not the appetite for them to do it because they can't join Boston, the Clippers, the Bucks, the Suns, teams where they really actually probably could use one more guy in their rotations. The Clippers maybe a little less so. Their rotation's pretty flush with good players, but those other teams could definitely use one more player. And in years past, I've talked to at least 7 or 8 different people around this that have kind of said, yeah, the buyout market may not deliver like it usually does, where there's probably not going to be a Blake Griffin style buyout where it is, all right, I stepped off of a huge contract, or a Russell Westbrook style buyout where it is, I gave up
Kyle Lowry, Gordon Hayward.
Yeah, those are ones that are a little bit more interesting with guys like that, because part of it is, for now, it's weird that they're both on the same team. Lowry, I think, is in a slightly different place. I think Lowry is, we're kind of at the end with Kyle Lowry, and there is a belief that maybe Philadelphia, if nothing else, would say, yeah, come on in on a minimum. You come home, finish it out here with us and go. But a guy like Gordon Hayward, there may be a spot where it is, hey, I'm better off having my contract expire, having my bird rights, and being able to sign a contract that starts in the range of 15, 20 million next year, as opposed to I take a minimum, and then the best most teams can do for me is the mid-level exception.
Right.
Like that, there is a belief from some people that could be a thing that just holds things up a little bit, because again, players, when they take a buyout, they want a chance to play and they want a chance to win, and that means trying to generally jumping on with one of the very best teams in the league, and some of the very best teams in the league just don't have that ability this season. So that's changed the dynamic a little bit. So that's something I'll write about here, and probably next week, at the beginning part of next week, for Spot Track. I'm going to have a whole bunch of buyout guys, but I'm going to spend a good chunk writing about how different the dynamics are this year versus previous years with the buyout market.
All right. Well, that's certainly going to be something for us to keep an eye on as well. Buyouts have been historically a big part, at least in the modern NBA, a big part of the NBA news cycle. Post trade deadline, it's all the buyout market stuff and who is now going to hit the market. Maybe there are less players out there this year. That'll certainly be something that we'll be keeping tabs on. But everybody, I want to thank you for joining us for today's show. Please make sure that you do subscribe to the Front Office Show on YouTube. Again, we've got the trade deadline coming up. We're going to keep you up to date on everything. So make sure that you do subscribe, turn on those notifications as well. And then over on the podcast side, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, give us that 5-star rating and review. We'll be back tomorrow with more of the latest going on around the NBA. Till then, see ya and stay safe.